Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of The Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Some of my past guests have included Max Klein of Lydia, Donald Morgan of Independent Wealth Connections, and Patrick Hannon of Fidelity Labs. Today, I'm speaking with Brian Portnoy of Shaping Wealth. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time manually reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using Quick, you'll be able to generate completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that reduces manual reviews to only 1 out of 1,000 submissions. Visit quickforms.com to get started. All right, I'm excited to talk to our guest today. Brian Portnoy is an entrepreneur, writer, and expert in the psychology of money. He's the founder of Shaping Wealth, the global wealth industry's premier learning and engagement platform for human-first financial guidance. Brian's 3 behavioral finance books have been published in 15 languages, and one of them, The Geometry of Wealth, How to Shape Life and Money and Meaning, sorry, I'm getting this all wrong, inspired his current venture. Brian previously worked for 20 years in the hedge fund and mutual fund industries as an investor, researcher, and educator. Brian, welcome to The Customer Wins.
Hi, Rich. Great to be here.
Sorry, I butchered the name of your book. You can mention it again later.
It's all good.
So for those who haven't heard this podcast before, I love to talk to business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges to growing their own company. So Brian, let's understand your business a little bit better. How does your company help people?
So we are experts in the psychology of money and the psychology of financial planning. And the core problem that we address is that individuals, all of us, human beings, struggle with money. For deep evolutionary reasons, the brain and money don't play particularly well together. The brain evolved to solve a bunch of survive and thrive problems well before money was invented. Lo and behold, this new thing shows up and we're like, well, what do we do with this? So, we're supposed to buy low and sell high. We're supposed to invest for the long run. We're supposed to save more and spend less. Guess what? We don't do a lot of that a lot of the time. And so as experts in that field, we have some sense of how people can do better. But in particular, Rich, the business that I've built is B2B. We work with financial advisors. So we train financial advisors to have better conversations with their end clients, our friends, neighbors, you name it, on making better financial decisions. So Shaping Wealth is a learning and development platform with courses and workshops and coaching and things like that, all geared toward making the financial advice industry that much better at engaging their clients.
So I was just having this conversation yesterday with somebody that when I was an advisor, I came to the conclusion that 90% of my job was psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And it was listening and understanding and empathizing and seeing what people are going through and helping them talk them off the cliff, et cetera. But the person I was talking to said, that's not the norm, Rich. That's not the norm of what financial advisors do or act like. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what is the norm for a financial advisor and their attitudes towards the psychology of money, et cetera?
Yeah, so there's a historical dynamic here. I call it the 50-year arc from Gordon Gekko to Brene Brown. That financial advice way back when was brokerage. Blue Horseshoe loves Anacott Steel.
Yeah.
You're putting your best client into your best idea. There's still brokerage. People are still selling. That's fine. Having the right product for the right client is a good thing. However, the arc of progress is more toward those coaching or therapeutic conversations. We're not therapists, not trained to be, but because money is such an emotional topic, it does raise all of these issues around fear, greed, envy, hope, joy, regret. When I give talks to groups of advisors all over the world, I often ask the question, who here has ever felt like their client's therapist? I think it's been 100% of the hands in every room goes up. The challenge is this, Rich, is that we are trained very well in our industry, in the wealth management industry, on the mechanical elements of advice. technical expertise in building portfolios, purchasing insurance, estate planning, taxes, things like that, but not so much on the guidance piece. And so the mission of Shaping Wealth is to train the guides on the journey toward financial well-being. And that's a different thing because that means this is humans helping other humans navigate uncertainty, complexity, and change. Uncertainty, complexity, and change is the human condition. It's the soup that we're in. It's really hard. And it's one thing to build a portfolio. It's another to really know how to listen and empathize and understand where somebody's coming from. That's the training and engagement that we've put into the world. That's the platform we've built.
So what does that really look like to the end consumer who's going through this course or this training? I mean, is it
Hmm.
all about communication skills? Is it building more empathy, like the Brené Brown approach, which I
Hmm.
love her, by the way?
Yeah, she's great.
What does it look like?
Yeah. So our consumer is the financial advisor. Yes, I give talks to large audiences of individual investors, but the vast bulk of what we do, what we've built, is oriented toward engaging financial advisors, the wealth management industry globally, and we've got clients on 6 continents. Still haven't found an advisor in Antarctica. I'm looking, but we're seeing this global trend toward so-called human first or behavioral advice. And what it looks like is, and you started going there, a whole set of skills and mindsets that our customers, the financial advisor, can use in their day-to-day engagement with clients. So first and foremost is emotional intelligence. A lot of what we do is train financial advisors in the 4 dimensions of emotional intelligence, which are self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and social skills. One of the most fascinating and less understood elements of emotional intelligence is that the source of being truly empathetic is self awareness. And
Hmm.
so, for better or for worse, the advisors who we work with, thousands of advisors all over the world, we ask them to go down their own exploratory path. Who are they? What does money mean to them? We work with financial advisors on their money stories, which is a really powerful and important exercise. Hundreds and hundreds of advisors have gone through our money story exercises, programs, I should say. What we've found is that upwards of 90% of financial advisors, experts in money, have never once written down why money is important to them. And then when we help them work through these money story exercises, where did you learn about money? From whom? What are your values and beliefs in this space? It ends up that they recognize that they become better listeners. Once they've figured out their own story, they're more finely tuned to hear what others are saying. So, one big skill bucket, if you will, that we train financial advisors in is emotional intelligence. Another one, and I'm not going to go through all of them because we have so many workshops and modules and seminars and such, but another one is well-being. Um, the science of happiness is a robust field. It's known as positive psychology. And in some ways, the future of behavioral finance, the future of psychology of money, is understanding what makes us deeply contented and happy in life and where money fits into it. The challenge is this: it's really awkward, sometimes weird, in a financial advice context to talk to people about what their meaning of life is. Like, what's your purpose? Like, you go to your broker, your advisor, and they're like, hey, what's the meaning of life? Like, wait, what kind of conversation? I thought we were talking about the stock market, right? Not so much. So we educate our clients, our customers, to have not awkward, very productive, authentic conversation about what's truly important to their clients. And once they can have that understanding, they can then attach the money pieces. So it's a pretty wide-ranging set of human skills. That's why we call it human first or human centric, related to well-being, emotional intelligence, decision making, how we navigate change in life, many other topics.
Okay, so I love this because I love self-improvement, and I've written 2 books. One is actual methodology for how to change called It's My Life, I Can Change If I Want to. And I've always been fascinated with how we can get better internally first to advance the rest of our lives. And honestly, I know a lot of entrepreneurs who have that mindset of I have to improve myself to improve my business. how receptive are financial advisors to that? How many of them are in the mindset of self-improvement and constant, reinvigoration of who they are? Or is that a battle to overcome and try to get them to see the value of doing this?
It's the battle. Honestly, it's the battle. I'd say it's a pretty mixed landscape out there. I think many people, we know, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners understand or recognize the distinction between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. I
Mhm.
think most people think they have a sense of humor, but they're not particularly funny. Most people think they have a growth mindset, but they don't.
Yeah.
And the reason we know that they don't is that growth requires investment, it requires pain. You can't build muscle without breaking muscle. And in an industry where you can make a pretty good living not having to sort of change much, invest much in your business, to then say, oh, okay, we're going to break things apart. We're going to sort of reinvest here in our human capital. And that's going to involve learning, it's going to involve paying attention, engagement, and ultimately change. So we've got lots of customers, they're into what we do. But when I look about around the industry generally, I see a pretty mixed array of folks who range from a very much a fixed mindset. Like they might find what we do kind of interesting because it is. It's about the brain. It's about who we are. And then at the other side of the spectrum, we see people rolling up their sleeves and doing one thing after another with us to continuously improve.
So if you were invited by a firm to come speak at their national sales conference and they had 1,000 people in the audience, how many would raise their hand to come work with you just off the bat? Like what percentage do you think you attract naturally?
Well, okay, I mean, so what's the firm like? I mean, what's the nature of the firm?
Oh, I
Or
don't know. I mean, just pick a broker dealer or something, a wealth
yeah,
management firm.
I would say 200, 250. It really depends on the incentives of everyone sitting in the room. If your incentive is to sell a product to a customer and not to get into these deeper conversations that we think drive better, not only better life outcomes, but better long-term commercial outcomes, you might look at what we do and say, okay, where's the quick hit? Where's
Yeah.
the dopamine rush? That's not what we're really selling. However, the industry's changing a lot. And some of the core features of wealth management have been commoditized. It's pretty hard to say, hey, I can pick better mutual funds than the next guy, or I can build a better portfolio than the person down the street. That's just simply not true anymore. Maybe the end customer believes it because you say it in a compelling way. It's simply not true. I think what's understood now in this arc from Gordon Gekko to Brene Brown is that the real edge in advice is on the human side. It's making those connections. And the people in that room who I would be speaking to who think, okay, not only do I need to dig in deeper with the families that I take care of, but I need to build a team who gets it also. Those are the firms that are going to sort of latch on to our suite of programming, and we're going to have a great long term relationship with them.
So I heard a great quote from a coach saying the growth of your company is directly correlated to your own personal growth. And I'm wondering if you have metrics or studies or things like that that correlate what you're teaching to outcomes that these advisors and firms are seeing as a result of becoming more human centric. Do you have that kind of knowledge or?
Yeah, and I'd probably label it as anecdata, meaning we have lots of customers, we do surveys, we do NPS scores, we try to track progress over time. Tracking that progress can only go as well as the firm allows it to. And most firms don't do a particularly good job at tracking the progress on their human capital. To the extent that they do, and to the extent that we have hundreds of testimonials, we've run big programs with big firms, we hear pretty frequently that our programs change people's lives. And I don't mean just the end client. I'm actually talking about the financial advisors who we train. And I think one of the reasons, the core reason why we find that is that we speak to our customers as humans first before we speak to them as financial advisors. The modern financial advisor is often sort of sitting at this big intersection of transactions, and all they're doing is taking a story or a product from over here and trying to move it over here. And they're just sort of a conduit. They're a very well-paid conduit.
Right.
We say stop. We say human first advice starts first with the advisor as human. What's motivating you? So the comments I made earlier about money stories, really coming to terms with who you are, what you're trying to achieve here, what's important. And that lands. And so we have so many testimonials from advisors saying this was the most transformative learning experience of my career. And you've changed the trajectory of my firm. I can't ground that in a massive Excel spreadsheet. I could just point to a lot of people whose lives we've changed.
I have to imagine this is really attractive and applicable to the fee-only advisors out there.
Yes.
Are you seeing
Yes.
that?
Yeah. I think we have more success in the fee only space where there's not an incentive to sell a product. The
Yeah.
incentive is to provide great long term advice. And so, I mean, we are one way of thinking of us is we are a human capital solution. We make people better at what they do and who they are. And if your incentive is to build a financial plan and have a long-term view on what's going to drive success for your client, however they choose to define that, however you can, participate in that dialogue about what counts as success, then the types of skills that we train you on make a big difference. You made a brief allusion to it earlier. I'll amplify it now. Communication skills. So, for example, we have a coaching program called Navigating Behavioral Advice, our Navigator series. And it is a super practical, tactical set of workshops on better client conversations, the psychology of client conversations in the 4 meetings that every advisor on the planet has. 100% of all advisors have the same 4 meetings: prospecting, discovery, onboarding, and then ongoing reviews. And there's an underlying psychology and there's a real conversational acumen in terms of how to ask a better question, how to listen a little bit better, how to connect the dots, how to tease out what's really important. So that sort of communication skill building is absolutely critical. You know, the firms that want more sales training, sometimes do have a hard time connecting with them, other than to say, well, a richer pool of emotional intelligence and much deeper communication skills should be producing more skills. But we're not doing all the tricks and flips with sales that might get you sort of a hit today versus what it's going to build culturally over time.
Yeah. I, the whole industry is about the deeper relationship at the end of the day, in my view. Because I've had a lot of conversations about the generational wealth transfer. How do you keep the children of the clients that you have as they transfer that wealth over time? It always comes back to the nature of the relationship. Are you having a relationship with them? Which is fundamentally how you're communicating. And are you communicating? And are you listening and going through all this? So I want to kind of switch this up a little bit because you are asking an advisor to change.
Mm.
And in order to buy your service, they also have to change. Like it's a double whammy. You're selling change, but they have to change in order to buy the service in the first place. I mean, quick, we have faced that problem. We talked to an advisor. They're like, we have a solution. We have a 10 times better solution, but they don't want to change. And
Right.
it's like, how do you overcome that? How do you get people to say the change is worth having?
So it's a great point. I'd break, let's, I think crudely, but sort of accurately break the world into 2 buckets. Those who are eager to change but don't know how, and those who either aren't even thinking about change, or if they are, they're quite resistant to it. There's actually, and we teach this, we have a whole program called Navigating Change. And there's a model in psychology known as the trans-theoretical model of change. It's a big word, but it basically says it means change is a process. And some people are at this pre-contemplation phase or this contemplation phase, and they're like, I don't want to engage in this coaching program, or I don't want to lose weight, or I don't want to change that relationship. They're just not there yet. And there are others, however, that are poised. we do quite well with those who are poised for change. And then we're able to say, this is the path. And it's such a large industry. There's so many people to work with. And there's no question that the imperative of the modern industry is to improve relationships. So even if it's a top down mandate, you do have plenty of firms saying, hey, we need to dig in deeper. We need to understand our clients. And oh, by the way, the whole artificial intelligence trend is going to make this even more fraught because as you engage with ChatGPT or Claude and you feel like they know you, that could be seen as a threat to the advisor or the advisory firm where it's like, oh, wait a minute, we have to understand our clients even better. So, point is, digging in with clients who are already primed for change, those are great conversations because then we can quickly get into here's what we offer, here's the specific things that you're going to walk away with, even at the level of learning objectives, continuing education credits, specific skills that you'll be able to measure over time. The broader mission, which is a little bit, mission, it has a missionary quality to it, is to say that humanizing advice, which is sort of our tagline, humanizing advice is virtuous, but also commercially savvy. And so let's have that. The thing is, as the industry becomes more competitive and consolidates and private equity money comes in and the focus on shorter term profits, I think, is accelerating, those conversations become harder now, not easier.
I think you said something really, really critical in there. A lot of really good stuff. But the critical piece is in sales, selling to people who are ready is 100 times easier than somebody who's not ready. And so I heard this from somebody else. He said his job was to go into a magazine company and help sell more ads. And his sales team had 3,000 contacts to go against. And he said, stop that. Look at all the other magazines. And he found out there was 175 or 180 of the 3,000 actually advertising today. And he said, those are your leads. That's it. We're not going to try to convince nearly 2,800 people more to advertise if they're not ready to advertise. Let's only focus on the ones that are going to actually advertise right now and win them. And it's one of the hardest things when you're trying to grow your business to say, I have something super valuable for you, but you're not ready. So let me help you get ready. No, take the ones that are ready.
Yeah. That's been, I think, part of the way I've tried to build the business. The other dynamic that I'll flag, if we're just going to be transparent about how hard this can be, is that I think a lot of what we do, even though I think it's critical, even though I think it's essential, it tends to always fall into the nice to have bucket. So when you think about the budget, when you think about the budget lines of an advisory firm, they have to hire certain people. They need to own certain pieces of technology like financial planning software or a CRM. They need to have all of the business blocking and tackling done. And then you get to, okay, how are we going to improve our talent pool? How are we going to hire the right people? And that might sound essential, but the challenge is that the payoff between the spend and the outcome can be so long, in some cases, years, it becomes mushy. And so I've tried so hard and for the most part failed to move us from the nice to have bucket to the must have bucket. We've got a couple enterprise clients, large clients, fantastic, who have us in their must have bucket because they think if we're not investing in our people in the way that shaping wealth can help, then like, what are we doing? Because this is a people oriented business. Believe it or not, that is not the common belief. It's usually step one, oh, what you're doing is fascinating. Step two, let's have a deep dive conversation. Step three, this is on our priority list, but it rarely percolates to the top, even though, even when that emphasis on training and learning and engagement seems to be important to them.
Man, the best years of my career are the years I have personally changed the most. And the outcomes may have taken a year or 2 years to really fully manifest, but I know when I work on me in those years, I see the most outcome in my company's growth, my team's growth, the happiness factor, everything. So I'll give you the anecdote to say this is a must have. I mean, self-improvement, investing in yourself is a must have. But now, how do you compete with the darlings of AI? when everybody's like, I got to get this AI assistant and AI agent and AI XYZ to help me run my business faster, save time, do the communication with my client for me. How do you
Right.
compete? And what's your view of AI with your business?
Well, so AI is a huge tailwind for my business. Tailwind. We've built an AI called Lydia. Why Lydia? Because the very first coin ever discovered was the Lydian coin, 2,700 years ago. Turkey today, the Empire of Lydia. Then it's not only a pretty name, but Lydia is sort of our shout out to the human journey with money. And we have designed Lydia as an always-on, empathetic coach, thought partner, and support system for an advisor. Effectively, Rich, what we've done is crystallize my entire team's know-how, expertise, and wisdom into an agentic AI that can have an ongoing, just-in-time, fully integrated, infinitely scalable conversation with as many advisors who sign up. So in a traditional LMD platform, what I call our analog platform, you find what we do interesting, you do an asynchronous workshop, or you do a live coaching session with us. And, like we said, the reviews are quite good, but it's time away, it's attention away. It's not even the money, it's the time and attention. And then you got to come back and figure out how to apply it. What we've realized from a distribution point of view, but also a storytelling point of view, is that people love what we talk about and they love the skills that we are introducing, but they struggle with how to use that in their daily in their daily existence. So Lydia, poetically, is that always on coach and conversation partner. Practically, she is an open API platform where every agent is an API endpoint. And the thing about me and my team is that we're intimately aware of what financial planners do every day. And sometimes it's helping a client, sometimes it's training a new teammate, and sometimes, to a point you've made a couple times now, wisely, it's taking care of yourself. Advisor well-being is a very, very big theme for us because we see advisors on 6 continents struggle with anxiety, imposter syndrome, burnout, things like that. So your clients, your teammates, and yourself, we have under construction more than 20 different agents who, depending on what's going on, show up and in your tech stack, integrated into your CRM or into your financial planning software or some other tool that you already have. And it does things that you find very useful. So I'm the owner and GM of the franchise. Lydia is my head coach. She's the super agent. And she is fine tuned to say, oh, I can answer this question myself, or, oh, no, I'm going to hand this off because I need a punter or a strong safety or a left tackle to get onto the field because this is the play that's being run.
Yeah, I love that. I love that thinking. I want to ask you a really fundamental question because you said you studied money and you even referred to the time when there was no money. So it's kind of a two-part question in a way. Has money always been there in some form, shape, or other? Because we had bartering and maybe money was wheat or stones. I don't even know. And two, what is the core purpose of money in humanity then?
Well, wow. Okay, I have an answer.
Maybe I shouldn't have asked the question with only 3 minutes left.
No. I can do this pretty quickly. There's always been exchange. There's always been transactions, but money as we understand it, meaning this standalone thing that is physically and now digitally passed off between one person and another, it's only a few thousand years old. The brain between our ears the software hasn't really been updated for more than 100,000 years. Money is a relatively brand new thing. So a lot of our adaptations in terms of short-term focus on survival and huddling with the tribe and other elements of that evolutionary journey translate into very difficult decisions because you're focused on the near term, not the long term. You go along with the crowd. Everybody's buying crypto. Well, then I should buy crypto. It feels safe. All those sorts of things. Money from a boring 7th grade point of view is a means of exchange, a unit of account, and a measure, a store of value. Boring and not useful at all. What money really is, what we know based on not just anecdote, but a lot of behavioral science, is that it's an emotional lightning rod for all of the big things: fear, greed, joy, envy, regret, anger, hope, you name it. It's a mirror. It is an opportunity or a challenge to look at who we really are and what our values really are. It's a weapon or a cudgel in relationships between institutions. So money is actually a social experience for which we generally all, including me, lack a perfect vocabulary. I always say that no one speaks the language of money fluently. And in some ways, what Shaping Wealth does is teaching the language, grammar, and syntax of money so that people can have better conversations about what really matters to them and how money fits into it. So it's a trip, man. It does a number on us. We know that it does, and we sort of stammer and grope for the right words. I'm really proud of what we've built in terms of the ability to share sort of those words with financial advisors. And something I say to advisors all the time is, we give you the words, but you find your voice.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk to you about happiness and emotion and information processing and decision making. It's cool. It's fun. You're gonna learn a lot. But at the end of the day, you're gonna take the words from me and my team, and you're gonna have to find your authentic voice, because that's what's gonna connect to the client.
Yeah. See, I'm glad I asked the question. I knew you'd have.
Oh yeah, and that was pretty. That history of money and emotion in about 90 seconds. Okay, that's a win.
That was brilliant. Brilliant. Good job. I'm going to have to wrap this up, and I do have one more question. But before I get there, what's the best way for people to find and connect with you, Brian?
Sure. So Shaping Wealth is the company. Shapingwealth.com is the website. We have a free content platform called Compass, because for our advisors, you are the guide, we are your compass. So if you go to shapingwealth.com, you can just sign up for Compass right there. And for me, LinkedIn's the best way to reach me. I'm on there all the time. So Brian Portnoy on LinkedIn. And hey, my email's bp@shapingwealth. And I'm always up for a good conversation.
Obviously. Outstanding. All right. So here's one of the favorite questions I love to ask. Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style and how you approach your role today?
Yeah, it's such a good and important question. And my mind goes in a few different ways. I want to flag somebody who's become very important to me more recently, just over the last couple to 3 years, and who has influenced so much of the good things happening in Shaping Wealth. And that's one of my advisory board members named Jason Pereira. Jason is a Toronto-based financial advisor, runs a very successful firm called Woodgate, but well beyond that is an absolute expert in financial technology and AI, and has just been sort of my brother in arms on the build out of Lydia. And really, as I'm in the weeds and going 100 miles an hour in 9 different directions, he has been a wonderful sort of source of direction and guidance as I figure things out. Because demonstrating leadership to my team, demonstrating competence and leadership to our customer base is always a work in progress. So Jason's not the only guy in my network that comes to mind, but I'm going to flag him just because he's been such a wonderful friend and thought partner, and has demonstrated through his action and attitude the good things that can happen.
Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing that. He is a good guy. All right, I got to wrap this up. So I want to thank Brian Portnoy, founder of Shaping Wealth, for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out Brian's website at shapingwealth.com. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easier. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. We'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Brian, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Rich. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.